Hello and welcome to the Oregonian Sports Podcast. I am sports columnist Bill Oram at the Oregonian, joined as always by Brenna Q. Greene of KOIN 6 here in Portland.
Q?
Is that not your middle initial?
No.
It was worth a try. I had a 1 in 26 chance of getting it right, and I thought maybe
I wonder
it would be
what my middle name would be if it started with a Q.
Quinn.
Yeah, I can only think of that or Quinley. No. I have the most basic middle name of all time. But I feel like I shouldn't reveal my middle name for safety purposes.
That's fair. The most basic middle name I could think of, there's probably 6. There's Marie Ann Beth Lynn Elizabeth and Lane.
Okay. All right. I'm so glad we've started the podcast off this way.
You could have just let the people believe your middle initial was Q, and we would have been off and rolling by now.
When you say the letter Q, I think of something else, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So I felt like I needed to just clarify.
Today on the Oregonian Sports Podcast, the Oregon Ducks, ranked number 1 in the country, traveled to the Big House. Is it really not that loud? And the Portland Trailblazers, off to a rocky start, which is to be expected, but DeAndre Ayton is putting up historic numbers. Not DeAndre Ayton. What am I talking about? The other guy. Donovan Clingan is putting up historic numbers. We're going to talk about that. And goodbye to a legend, Christine Sinclair, hanging up her boots after more than 20 years as a Portland icon. But first, Brenna, on this fine, rainy Portland morning, I do want to start by talking about what went on last night in Beaverton at the Patricia Research Center for the Performing Arts. And that was the Oregon Sports Awards, as well as the Oregon Sports Hall of Fame inductions. Shout out to Sport Oregon for putting on a truly impressive night out there at the Research in Beaverton. The Night of Champions from Sport Oregon, a first of its kind sort of coming together awards night that blended several kind of institutions into one night of honoring athletes and sports figures in the state of Oregon. The highlight, Megan Rapinoe went into the Oregon Sports Hall of Fame. She spoke on stage. Pat Casey into the Oregon Sports Hall of Fame. And, numerous other award winners, Sabrina Ionescu and Ryan Krauser won, Pro Athlete of the Year awards. They were not in attendance. Diego Valeri went into the Hall of Fame. He was in attendance. Just a couple of notes from this evening. I was lucky enough to be able to help present the Prep Athlete of the Year, the Rising Stars, alongside Nick Strang, my colleague here at the Oregonian, which was pretty cool. And then, but Megan Rapinoe, global icon, obviously a legend, a national champion at the University of Portland alongside Christine Sinclair. Very cool to see her in that setting, being interviewed on stage, talking about what Portland meant to her. Would you like to guess what she said about Portland, Brenna?
Mixed emotions?
So you're on the right track. So it was all positive, right? It was all, love with Portland, but of course of the rivalry with the Thorns in her years with the Reign. She said that some of the most fun memories she has of Portland, in addition to obviously playing at UP and winning in the biggest way imaginable for the Pilots up on the bluff, and really finding herself, by the way, she said that was where she really kind of started to figure out who she is as a person, and not to mention a soccer player. But she talked about scoring against the Thorns there, against the supporters, wall of supporters there on that end of the stadium, and that there were two Thorns fans down in the front just flipping her the double bird after she scored one of her goals there. And she said that was the moment where she felt the most love and the most connection to the city of Portland, because they love to flip her the double bird, and she loved to preen in front of them because, of course, she was doing her trademark celebration. And it was just cool. It was cool to see her there talking about her days at UP, playing with Christine Sinclair. She said that her first year as a freshman, obviously defenses were so keyed up on Christine that she nobody knew who she was, so that freed her up so much her freshman year. And it's I just think it was, maybe I'm still a little bit in a post-COVID haze, but I just love moments where you see a lot of people from different worlds coming together. And you had people with connections to the Ducks. Obviously, there were Beavers there. Pat Casey, Joey Wong from the 07 championship team was there, and then what I love about events like that is you learn stories that you didn't know before. So, for example, I wasn't familiar with Rick Abrahamson, who played on the 1972 team handball team from the U.S. And his story was he's a former captain on the Ducks basketball team, grew up in McMinnville, but was basically in the military, prepared to go to the Vietnam War. And basically one of the generals was trying to put together a team handball team to compete in the 72 games in Munich. And basically was like, hey, well, you can deploy to Vietnam, or you can go try out to be on this team handball team. And so he chose handball and ended up competing in 2 Olympics. And as of last night, a member of the Oregon Sports Hall of Fame. So just a really cool night to see a lot of people and see people very deservingly get honored. I don't want to forget anybody here. Oh, I mean, I did want to note that Travis Bazzana was there, the number 1 pick in the MLB draft. I mean, it was funny. My wife and I were leaving, and she's not a huge sports person. And so we're leaving, and Travis Bazzana and his girlfriend are walking out holding hands. And I was like, you need to understand that guy is a future Major League Baseball superstar. And he's just, patrolling the streets of Beaverton right now. And my wife was like, oh, cool. I'm like, but it is cool. And, it's fun to see people in a casual setting like that. And just a really cool event, really well done by Sport Oregon and all the partners that were involved. Neil Everett, from formerly of ESPN and currently of the Trailblazers, was a co-host, and just a really nice event. The Oregonian Media Group, by the way, I would say was a presenting sponsor, which is probably how my mug ended up on stage. But we'll take the wins where I can get them. But pretty neat night.
I was only there for the appetizers portion of the event because we got an interview with Pat Casey and then left. But I will vouch that the food was delicious. So these are the things that matter to me. So
I did not see you. I got there a little bit late, so I missed you. I'm glad to know you were there though, because it was very cool and very well attended. By the way, I would say it was a great turnout. And I realized toward the end of the night that I think that was in part due to the fact that they honored the 1984-85 Portland State Division II National Championship volleyball teams, which was really cool. But I mean, you've got 25 women going up on the stage to be honored. And one of my favorite moments of the night is they were the last Hall of Fame inductees, and you see all the husbands standing up in the audience, like taking videos. All these 60-plus-year-old guys taking videos of their wives going into the Oregon Sports Hall of Fame. And I just want to say also, one of the volleyball players at the end of the night said she was so humbled to be surrounded by Megan Rapinoe and Diego Valeri, and that you had all these, you had Olympians and pro athletes who were being inducted into the Oregon Sports Hall of Fame. And that I think she was saying that maybe she felt kind of undeserving by comparison or by contrast. And I just want to say, Megan Rapinoe has won every award there is to win. She'll be in every Hall of Fame there is. She's a Presidential Medal of Honor recipient, and I know there was a whole national debate about this: Medal of Freedom, Medal of Honor, but whichever one, she's received that from President Biden. So I actually think that it's even cooler on a night like that to see something like Division II national champions from Portland State's volleyball history being honored is even cooler than those big headlining names that we all know and people who are going to be New York Times obituaries when the time comes, right? Like, I mean, they are international figures. I love that the Oregon Sports Hall of Fame does make sure to acknowledge people who history hasn't done as good of a job remembering. And so I thought that was a real highlight of the night too. So certainly just as deserving, and frankly, maybe even more appreciated by me watching that we had a chance to see those kinds of people get honored as well.
There you have it.
We are now moving on from the Hall of Fame portion of our evening.
Even though we are not recording this in the evening.
of our. They don't. Some people could be listening to this in the evening, and that would have gone right over their heads. You didn't need to blow up my spot like that,
Okay,
Brenna Q.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me.
So, Oregon, Michigan, number 1 versus unranked. Maybe a little surprising at this point. Michigan has not been good, Brenna.
Nope.
Michigan State went into the Big House and nearly beat them. We saw what the Ducks did to Michigan State earlier this year. The Ducks are favored by double digits. Again, by any reasonable measure, this should be yet another Ducks blowout. Will it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime a team is having to go into a game with a 2-quarterback system, that's not a good sign for that team.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a 2-quarterback system that ends up becoming an incredible situation. Okay, and that's what they're having to do for this game. The fact that they still don't have this figured out at this point in the year says everything you need to know about Michigan this year. It's just offensively challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And, the defense is the defense. The defense is tough. We get that. But so was Ohio State's defense, and Oregon had no issues against that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have any jitters about this one, really. All of a sudden, Oregon's schedule for the end of the year just looks like kind of I don't want to say it's a cakewalk. Going into Camp Randall is never easy. But man, just looking at the teams, this is we should be looking at an undefeated Oregon squad going into that Big Ten championship game.
Yeah, there's no ranked opponents left. Wisconsin did play Penn State tough for a half on Saturday before ultimately getting run.
Mm-hmm.
This is, what is the line on Oregon, Michigan? Like 16 or something?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
I forgot. But it is. Come on, everybody wants to put everything. 15.5, 16.
Okay.
So yeah. I feel like that's probably as close as we're going to see an Oregon line the rest of the year, which is crazy when you consider that they've got 4 Big Ten conference games remaining. And when the schedule was built, I don't think you would have said that this was necessarily a soft back end. A soft back into the schedule.
No,
you got the Huskies. You've got Wisconsin on the road. You got Michigan on the road. The only one that's not a juggernaut or certainly a kind of scary name in that situation is Maryland coming in another week. But the way the season has gone for all those teams, this is. And I wrote this after the Purdue game, that every game the rest of the season is now a trap game. And so when you talk about Purdue and how they survived a trap game, everything's a trap now because you have all opponents that really have nothing to lose, you are their Super Bowl now. It is very validating in a lost season or a losing season to be able to say, hey, but we did beat the number 1 team in the country.
Yep.
And so Michigan is going to be hyped to play Oregon. Their season's gone sideways. They are not very good. They got throttled when they played Texas. Their first shot at a top 3 team. A team that has been number 1 got throttled. They're probably going to get throttled by Ohio State when that time comes. Oregon coming in first time in the Big House as a Big Ten conference opponent. Probably thinks they've got a real shot at rattling the Ducks. What did you think? What did you make of Derrick Harmon saying at his media availability on Tuesday that the Big House, he doesn't think, in his experience as a former Michigan State Spartan, is very loud?
He made a good point. He's like, well, it's not loud when I'm out there because I'm on defense, and so they aren't hooting and hollering when their team is on offense. So that resonated with me. But I mean,
boo! I mean, get out of here. Go ahead. But, finish your point, but go ahead.
But I mean, what do you expect him to say? Like, he does not like that team. He is not going to give that team any sort of props at all. Like, that was made very obvious from the very jump of that interview.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that he said what he said. Yes, it's the big house, but I don't, I don't really know if yes, it's good. There is a lot of people in attendance at Michigan, but I don't know if Michigan is necessarily known for being super loud. It, at least from my experience, from my just, watching things, like, I feel like Autzen has a really big reputation for being a loud place to play because of the way that it's constructed. But sometimes, like, those big stadiums too, because they're so big, they can't have the fans kind of like be right on top of the field and screaming down into it because of, like, okay, I'm sure you've been to the Rose Bowl before. I remember the first time I went to the Rose Bowl, and I was in high school, and I was so confused because I was like, this place isn't getting loud. Why isn't this place getting loud? And then I finally realized the reason why it wasn't getting loud was because it was so big that the way it was slanted going back, you couldn't get that place loud because it was at such a low slant so that they could pack as many people in there to see a game. So, I think that I've never been to Michigan's. I've never been to the Big House before, but I would imagine it might be a similar situation there. So, but even if it does get loud, like, he would ever admit that.
So I think multiple things. I think probably the concept of bulletin board material is overblown in general, and you're right. Like, he doesn't like Michigan, so he's not going to say anything nice about Michigan. I do think that it is objectively funny that you would say that a stadium with 115,000 people isn't loud. Now, your point is well taken that, I think like decibel per capita or something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not as loud as an Autzen or a Washington Grizzlies stadium or my living room when Freddie Freeman hit the walk-off grand slam. Like, I'd probably put that up against any stadium in the country in game one. But 115,000 people screaming, fired up for a number one team is going to be objectively loud. It will be loud. I also think that Derrick Harmon, I do not buy his caveat of, it's because I'm on defense, so it's not loud when the Wolverines are on offense. It doesn't. I think he was taking the very understandable shot at Michigan for not being as loud as they want to think they are, or not being as special as they think they are, because he has now multiple reasons to be down on Michigan. Do I think that Michigan will probably, like, do they do the cinematic recaps that Oregon does at Michigan as well?
I'm not privy to that information.
If they do, don't you just see Derrick Harmon? It's not that loud, like, factoring in and getting some run in that, as it should. And, like, I appreciate some good old fashioned. I don't know. I appreciate him giving us a storyline. It's not even like trash talk,
really.
But it's the sort of thing that does sort of, it kind of hits them where it hurts, right? Like, Michigan is really proud of its environment. It's proud of having the largest stadium in college football. So if you say, it's kind of whatever, that's like saying, oh, Oregon, Eugene, it's not that green, really. The trees are just fine. It's not very pretty. Like, it's not that nice. Like, people in Eugene would take that personally. So I think it's just hitting them where it hurts a little bit. I am maybe a little surprised. I haven't seen that get as much run as maybe I thought it would, and maybe that is because he said that it's because of when he's on defense. But I thought that was sort of a cop out. Also, if you're gonna say it's not that loud, just say it's not that loud. Like, back it up. Like, go for the gold. Don't back off of it. But I will just for everyone's full understanding, the full quote was, surprisingly, it's not that loud. When I'm on the field, it's not that loud for me. Their offense is on the field, so to me, it's not that loud. That's the whole quote. You can read it however you choose. to read it.
Yeah. I mean, I tweeted it out last night and it got some play, but I would say it got way more play amongst Oregon fans than it did Michigan fans.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Because you have way more Oregon followers. But give it time.
I mean, yeah, no, you're right. If Oregon goes and loses this game, that thing's going everywhere. So, but I mean, yeah, I have more Oregon followers, but like that doesn't really, I've seen things get picked up by fan bases before that
Totally.
were not fan bases that I covered. So, there you go.
Brenna, have you been watching the Portland Trailblazers play basketball this season?
I watched on Monday. Watched that one. Watched a little bit of Sunday's game as well. I know our conversation topic on this is Kling Kong. Yeah, that first game he played in was rough, but it was rough for everybody. So, I guess we just let that one go. Since then, obviously, he's been dynamic. He's been making an impact, to say the least.
So, a couple of things. Donovan Klingen's only playing 13 minutes a game through the first 4 games, and I understand that we're talking about an extremely small sample size, small sample theater here, all of that. But in his 13 minutes a game, he is averaging 4.3 points, 5.8 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game. So I like to extrapolate that out into the old per 36 numbers. So per 36, which means if you were to extrapolate his numbers over a 36-minute a night average, which he will probably never play 36 minutes a game, but it does help you understand his actual impact in the minutes he plays. He's at 11.8 points, 15.9 rebounds, and 5.5 blocks per 36. Now, I've not run these numbers since the last game against Sacramento, and his numbers were down just a little bit in that game.
Yeah.
But after 3 games, I do just want to point out that his number. He was at 6 point. Well, okay. No, I'm saying after the first 3.
Okay.
His numbers were 13.5, 15.3, and 6.3. Again, small sample size, but if you were to take that 6.3 blocks per 36 minutes and extrapolate that over a career, again, 3 games versus a career, but give me a second here. Only one player has ever averaged more than 6 blocks per 36 minutes over their career. Do you know who that was?
Olajuwon?
No.
I don't know.
Good guess. It was Manute Bol.
Oh, okay. Yep, that's another good guess. There you go.
And then number 2, and this is, by the way, a minimum of 10,000 minutes played. So this weeds out the guys who played 1 minute and had 1 block. You know what I mean? 1 minute NBA careers and then had 1 block. The next highest on that list is Mark Eaton, who was 7'6" and averaged 4.38 blocks per 36. So it's it's obviously too early to ask this. Like, is he Manute Bol? Is he Mark Eaton? But it's clear that he is a world. He's like a world beater, great like shot blocker and defensive player and rebounder, and finisher. And so this just opens up all sorts of, and this is kind of what we knew. I don't think we knew exactly what the numbers would look like, and I'd like to see what they look like after 25 games and obviously a season. And does he stay healthy? Which, I mean, in his career he has, but I am really interested to see when we stop seeing him play 13 minutes a game and when we see him play 24 minutes, 30 minutes a game, because he needs to be doing that now for the Blazers. He needs to be playing legitimate minutes now. And, I'm all for easing in a young player, but it is clear that he is ready, and it's clear that he makes the Blazers better. And we have a situation that the Blazers are heading toward where Robert Williams III is about to make his season debut.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that's tonight, whether that's in another 2 nights, he is about to return. And he's about to be healthy, which he hasn't been for his entire Blazers career. So, I mean, obviously, you knock on wood when you're talking about a player with a history of health issues. But he needs to play too, because he has one of the most tradable and team-friendly contracts in the NBA, which we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to play because teams that need centers, and there are several of them, need to see that he is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you are Chauncey Billups, the embattled head coach of the Portland Trailblazers in their 55th year of professional basketball in the Rose City, Rip City, what do you do at your center rotation, and whose minutes does Robert Williams III, who has to play, eat into?
Yeah, it's a conundrum to say the least, and I think it probably becomes a little bit of both. To be honest with you, I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's probably a few minutes from Donovan and probably maybe a little bit more from DeAndre.
So you think Donovan loses minutes in this?
Yes. I don't think it's a ton. I think maybe it's like 3. But I do think he loses minutes. I don't see any way that he doesn't. He's not starting. DeAndre is starting. The other thing that I think still remains to be a little bit of a question mark about Donovan is his conditioning. And I think there has been some moments where he's been a little bit winded out there. So, that's something to consider as well. I don't think that he is physically in the right place right now to be playing the minutes that DeAndre is playing. I think he could get there, but I don't think he is there as of the moment. So therefore, I would see, maybe 3 minutes from Donovan. And I mean, because here's the other thing. They're going to be easing Rob. I know Rob needs to play, but they're also going to be easing Rob into this. This is not going to be a situation where we're going to see Rob playing 13 minutes a night. I just don't see that happening right now, especially with, since he comes back from injury and then he has another injury literally due to the fact that he's just hasn't been practicing for the last, year. So, I don't think that this is a situation with Rob where we're all of a sudden seeing him playing, 13 minutes a game. I think it starts out small and they ease their way in. So that's why I think there will be more minutes from DeAndre going to Rob than from Donovan, but I do think that there will be a few from Donovan that go to Rob to begin with. So, yeah.
So riddle me this.
Riddled.
You said a while back that DeAndre's starting. DeAndre has to start. Why? What does he do for this team, either now or in the future, that justifies him needing minutes whatsoever?
Oh man, I mean, there's a lot of reasons that jump to mind in my head. I mean, are you suggesting that Donovan should start right now?
I am suggesting that, and I take your point is well taken, that Rob is going to be eased back into this, and that Donovan is probably still playing his way into NBA shape. All of that is fair. But the Blazers should, in my opinion, be working toward a situation where DeAndre Ayton is the number 3 center. At least until Robert Williams.
That doesn't make any sense for them to do right now. It
doesn't make any sense for him to play. It makes no sense for him to play. Donovan Clingan should be playing the minutes. And I understand that maybe he's not playing 30, but playing Donovan Clingan 13 minutes and DeAndre Ayton 32 minutes is an abdication of the responsibility this team has to developing its players and to building for the future. DeAndre Ayton should be on the bench.
DeAndre Ayton is an untradeable asset right now because
exactly. That's why there's no sense in playing him. It makes no sense to play him because you're not going to play him to suddenly some team says, "Oh, we should trade for him." You are stuck with him, and so therefore he is a sunk cost. You're not getting anything out of playing him, either from now or for the future. You are riding out the 2 years of his contract until he's a free agent and he is gone. So all you are doing by playing him is eating up minutes that players who actually need to play should be playing.
But
so he should only be playing the minutes that you aren't playing your first choice, who's Donovan Clingan, and your second choice, who's Robert Williams, because you need to show the league that he's healthy enough and ready to play. DeAndre Ayton is the filler, not the headliner. And right now he's the headliner on this team, and it makes absolutely no sense.
I understand where you're coming from completely, but this organization doesn't want to just get nothing for DeAndre Ayton either.
He's not. Brenna, we can revisit this in February of 2026.
Okay.
But he is not getting traded without the Blazers attaching significant assets. It gets a little more tradable in 2026 because he's an expiring, but then you're still taking back somebody else's bad money too. So DeAndre is a sunk cost. And it's a realization you're going to have to either come to now or later. But this gets back to where I've said on this podcast before, this season will end with DeAndre Ayton on the bench, healthy and on the bench. Or, I mean, not healthy potentially too, but like if there is any sort of vision or backbone in this organization, at some point they will make the decision that DeAndre Ayton there's no value in playing DeAndre Ayton. And so he will be the third, if not fourth center on this roster. Now that changes if you trade Robert Williams, but I mean, he certainly should be playing behind Clingan and Robert Williams, and there's an argument that he should be playing behind Duop Reith too.
That's an argument I'd love. That would be an interesting argument for me. I mean,
make the. I would okay if it's an interesting argument, make the argument. Why should he play? Why?
I think he should play because he does still need to show that he's a he was a valuable asset in this league, and he had an incredible end of the year last year.
On a bad team where he was just able to go be a ball stopper and that absolutely does nothing to contribute to winning. Absolutely does not need to be playing.
This is easily the most fired up you have ever been about anything on this podcast. It's fascinating.
I don't think so. I just don't think that he should be playing. Or he should not be a priority to play.
I mean, I just don't think that Donovan or Rob is ready to start right now.
I do accept that. I accept that. And like I said, I do accept the point that Donovan is still learning the ropes and probably playing himself into NBA shape, and that Robert Williams is is probably fragile.
You have to treat him with kitty gloves.
Yeah, I agree with that. But what they need to at least be building toward is what I'm describing.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether that's, a month into the season, 25 games into the season, that is how they should be viewing their three centers. So DeAndre Ayton, if he can be playing now, and Chauncey's obviously not going to come out and say, we're going to play DeAndre, for the next month while we kind of see what we have, and then we're going to shut him down. But my fervent hope and belief is that this is moving in that direction where DeAndre Ayton is he's certainly a placeholder, but he's not holding that place for the duration of this 2-year contract. I think he's holding that place for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, beyond the trade deadline would blow my mind. But I just think that it's like where we have to be a little bit honest about what is happening with this Blazers team.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of players who have no business being on this team who you can't get rid of right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to play Anthony because you need to trade him. You do need to play Jeremy because you need to trade him. DeAndre Ayton is not getting traded. So if you can't trade him, and I'm sure that they are naively holding on to the hope that they will be able to trade him, but they can't. I mean, highly paid centers who are one-dimensional like DeAndre Ayton are not in demand in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Karl Anthony Towns is vastly better than DeAndre Ayton, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one team was willing to make that move. So I just think that there needs to be a little bit of an honest conversation about DeAndre Ayton and what he's doing here. And at some point, you have to just eat it. DeAndre Ayton, and I don't mean like Mark Eaton.
It all comes back. All comes back
to Mark Eaton. All right.
Obviously, I can see your point down the road. I just don't think it's going to be happening. I just don't think it's going to be happening this year. So
okay, all
we'll
right.
see.
We'll revisit this.
We will revisit this.
Probably.
Oh, I'm sure this won't be the first time. Well, this is not the first time we've had this conversation, and it certainly won't be the last. So, there you go.
I think as it becomes increasingly clear that Donovan Clingan is a franchise center, it becomes decreasingly logical to invest any kind of resources, and by resources I mean minutes, in DeAndre Ayton.
If that ends up working out for Donovan, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just don't think that right now is the time to make that sort of move. I think that it's. I mean, we saw what happened when Scoot got thrown to the Wolves last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's let this kid ease his way into it. Maybe have a bit of a softer landing. Work, like you said, he's not quite in NBA playing shape yet. Okay? And let him work his way into it, unlike Scoot last year, who was thrown to the Wolves and then was getting, for lack of a better word, crapped on all year. So, not saying that he had a great year. We know the end of the year was good or was decent. But I think that this strategy is much more beneficial than what the strategy was last year.
But those are totally different situations.
Yeah,
you're talking about a ball dominant guard who is responsible for running the entire offense, who is the point of the who's at the head of the snake defensively, and at the fastest and most skilled players in the entire league.
Yep.
Donovan Clingan will play a role on this team, and that is he is just ready now. And if the argument is that he needs to, get in NBA shape, understand like the NBA, rhythm a little bit, you don't want to wear him down too quickly. I do get all of that, but he is ready now. And that has been the biggest takeaway from training camp, preseason, the first 4 regular season games. So 13 minutes, frankly, in my opinion, is unacceptable. It should at least right now be 50-50. When Rob comes back, the priority needs to be Donovan, Rob, and then DeAndre. So token starting DeAndre Ayton does nothing for this team. That's my view on it. And they're going to get there eventually. And the only way they don't get there is if Rob gets traded, right? Which should happen by February. And then you're trying to you're figuring out the rotation that's basically Donovan, DeAndre, and a few minutes for Duop Reith. But at some point, DeAndre Ayton needs to be told that he's the number 2, if not the number 3 center. And he's going to have to either be okay with that, or they're going to have to figure out something. So, but I mean, it's moving in that direction. If the Blazers have any backbone whatsoever, which remains to be seen.
Well, we'll see what happens with it. I just know that the messaging around the Blazers for this year has been, we're easing Donovan into this. That has been the messaging around the franchise. So. I know you're probably not a fan of said messaging, but
I mean, there's easing him in, and then there's just like holding him back.
You really think they're holding him back right now?
I mean, I think it's probably hard to make any of, like, I think that's too dramatic of a conclusion for the first 4 games.
Yeah.
But if it continues on this path, then I think that you could get there. Yeah. But I mean, again, it's been 4 games. I mean, it's like, but again, exactly. And I started this whole conversation with, small sample size theater, but it is clear that he is ready to go and he's ready to play. And he's better than 13 minutes a game.
Well, I mean,
you know who else has only been playing about 13 minutes a game in their appearances for their team? Christine Sinclair has evolved from the face and biggest star of the Portland Thorns over the years to a sage veteran voice, a local legend, an inspirational figure. Often comes off the bench to provide those heroic last-minute goals. Still happens, even at age 40.
I think she's 41.
41 comes to mind. What are you looking for this weekend? She plays her final game on Friday. Coronation of Christine Sinclair coming to the end of her journey as a player. Obviously started on the pitches of Canada, but obviously became certainly a national star here at the University of Portland on the Bluff before Megan Rapinoe, and then kind of helped build the NWSL from the ground up, and has been basically the entire history of the Portland Thorns has been here. So what are you looking forward to in the final farewell for Christine Sinclair?
By the way, I was right on her age. She's 41, so
crushed it.
Patting myself on the back here. I know my soccer ages. No, I don't. I just know hers. Because it kind of became an important age to know the last few years.
I want to just have flashcards of like global soccer stars and be like, tell me their age, and we'll go like Lionel Messi, boom.
Yeah, no, I would be lost on that one, to say the least.
You've convinced me that you know them all, so I'm ready to go.
I'm 1 for 1, baby. I watched. She did an interview with Karina LeBlanc. I watched that last night, and she said that she would be thinking about it more as her last game, probably, if there wasn't something on the line come Friday. Because if they lose, they won't know until Sunday whether or not they are going to the playoffs. The only way they don't go to the playoffs is if they lose on Friday and Racing Louisville wins on Sunday. I believe I'm right there. So, but because there is still something to lock up, she's not really thinking about this being her final game at Providence Park, which it undoubtedly will be with their position in the NWSL rankings right now. Standings, you could say. So, Christine is not someone who's emotional. That would absolutely not be a word used to describe Christine Sinclair. She's very calculated. I don't like using the word calculated with women because it has a negative connotation. But
Sure.
She's very staid, and she's logical. She is very logical is the word that I'm looking for here. Point A, point B, go. So that is going to be really interesting to watch a crowd that is absolutely going to be emotional over her and emotional over the state of what is at risk coming into that game. And then juxtaposing that with her and how she processes that, because to be honest, obviously she's going to acknowledge the crowd after the game, obviously, duh. But I'm just really interested to see how she handles this compared to how the crowd handles this, because I think it's going to be a little bit different. You're not. You could have a Diego Valeri moment where he runs towards the supporters section and she runs towards the supporters section. You could absolutely have that. But if they lose, I could see it not happening. Because she's going to be so frustrated. So
and focused on the impact of the outcome. Totally.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I'm just very interested to see the juxtaposition of emotions that night, and to see if there is any sort of crack in the armor of Christine Sinclair per se.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I would say that I hope that she finds, and I think she will, and I don't know if it'll look exactly like you're describing with the Valeri moment, which is was so beautiful and so pure. I agree that she's going to. You're gonna see her wearing the result, right, of the match.
Yeah.
But we've seen it in baseball where some things are bigger than the result of the game or how the season ends. And, when, Derek Jeter has his send off with the Yankees, or, when like she needs to come out for that curtain call and have that moment, because it's been a slow sort of farewell, in the sense that, there's kind of been this year to year. Is she going to come back? After they won 2 years ago, she came back and said, absolutely coming back. So I think that the fan base has had a chance to sort of appreciate her and honor her along the way, kind of knowing that the end was near, whether it was going to be this year or not. And obviously they've had a few weeks since the official announcement. But I think you're going to see a beautiful scene kind of no matter what. But I do, for the sake of Christine being able to fully appreciate it and to fully be present in that moment, a Thorns victory would certainly, I think, open the door to that more. Where, she would be able to just sort of be of the celebration, instead of kind of living in a loss. One thing I think about with Christine Sinclair, because I think that there is she might be the greatest women's soccer player of all time in the world. And I think that, that is something that is appreciated in Canada, and it's something that is appreciated in Portland.
Yeah.
Obviously Thorns fans do not need an education on how great Christine Sinclair has been over the last 20 plus years. From, her being 18 years old at UP, scoring 98 goals for the Pilots, winning national championships. I do, and how do I want to say this? Because I multiple things. I think that, there is a trap of falling into, looking at international sports through such an American prism, where it's like, oh, who's the greatest women's soccer player of all time? Well, it's obviously Mia Hamm, or it's obviously Alex Morgan, or it's obviously Megan Rapinoe. And it's like, I wonder if Christine Sinclair's greatness and impact have been overlooked in the U.S. just to some degree.
Oh yeah.
Because when you're talking about the World Cup, she's playing for Canada. She's not, she's playing for, and for great Canadian teams, by the way, winning a couple of bronzes, winning gold finally in 2020. But imagine what not everybody has to be an American. It's okay. There are other great countries out there. But imagine what her star power would be like if she had been American, if she had played on Team USA. And, I think Christine Sinclair can probably walk into a Walgreens in most cities in America and not get bombarded. I don't know about Canada. Like in Canada, she might not be able to go out in public at all, but in the US she can. And probably from a livability standpoint, that's great. But if she had played
she wants.
But if she had played for Team USA, can you imagine when you talk about the amount of success she had, the goals that she had on the international stage? That's 190. I'm looking at it now. It's 190 goals for the Canadian senior team, which is, by the way, the most of any national team player, men or women, in the world. So it's just like, I think that there is still, the point I'm trying to get myself to here is, for as great as Christine Sinclair is, you and I have been watching her most of our lives. It feels like she is still underappreciated. Maybe not here, maybe not by Thorns supporters, but just sort of like across the sports landscape. Like, and again, I get it because we're talking about like American media and American media, sensibilities. But, when Christine Sinclair plays her, last game at Providence Park on Friday, maybe her last game ever, is that the lead story on ESPN? It's not. But when you're talking about the end of one of the greatest soccer careers we've ever seen, it should be. So my point is, she's even greater than I think she gets credit for, at least in the U.S.
I think that, no, I think you're absolutely right, but I think it also has to do with the fact that, beyond the fact that she played for Canada and didn't play for Team USA, she does not have the personality of a Megan Rapinoe or an Alex Morgan or, Mia Hamm, like you said.
Totally true.
That is this outgoing,
she's not
shiny
a celebrity
person.
She's not a celebrity.
No. And
or any celebrity that she does have is not of her own doing. She has not sought it out as
No.
like in endorsements or
No.
appearances or yeah. Okay, you're on your way to a great point. Continue.
Yeah, I mean, like, I saw that she did a few things with Aviation Gen this year, and I was like stunned by that. I was like, whoa! Like, this is new. Like, she's doing something like a partnership that's outside of a sports brand or outside of, you know, the Thorns. Like, ooh, wow, that's new ground for Christine Sinclair. It's just not, it's not who she is, and that's totally fine. That's not like a knock on her by any means. But because of the fact that she is not a self-promoter. Let's put it that way. That is not something that Christine Sinclair has ever really focused on, you know? And I'm not saying that other people have focused on it, but I would say that other people have been better about it than she has. So that's just, you combine those two things, you know, playing for Canada and not being somebody who was out there in the public eye, and, you know, I mean, not being somebody who seeks that sort of stuff out. And this is the result, you know. But by the way, that's probably what that's what she wants. Like, I don't think she really wants to be known as the greatest, you know, international player of all time. I don't think that's something that she really cares about.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's something that she aspires to be. I think if that happens, cool, in her line of thought process, but it's not something that she is seeking. And she would much rather be able to live more of a private life than have more recognition for what she has done. I think that is a very easy yes from Christine in terms of what she aspires to. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, she's underappreciated. I would say, like, I might even go on to say that she's underappreciated by people in the city. Like, yes, the Thorns have a strong fan base, but do I think your average Oregonian really understands what Christine Sinclair has accomplished on a soccer field? I don't
Probably
really
not.
think so.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I don't really think so. I think that there's a group of people who understand that, but I think that, you know, the casual Oregon football fan, you walk up to them and you go, who scored the most international goals, men or women, in soccer and you know, in national team soccer?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're gonna know that it's Christine.
I agree with you. And I think that some of that is, you know, I think that there is still the reality that, you know, there is still an underappreciation of women's sports.
Yep.
And particularly women's soccer at a club level. And so, like you said, I mean, there's a dedicated, loyal, very knowledgeable fan base here that is probably, you know, larger, more dedicated, more knowledgeable than anywhere else. But that is still, you know, you know, only a portion of sports fans in the state. And so I guess what I would say is I hope that, you know, I have no doubt that the reaction that Christine Sinclair is going to get, I like that Christine Sinclair is also one of those people that you almost have to always say both names. Like, it's not just like Christine, it's never Sinclair. It's always like Sink or Christine Sinclair.
Ooh, yeah. I have something I need to pass by you about the last name Sinclair but continue with your point.
Sinclair, blah, 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 whatever I was saying. I hope people who are not maybe in that already, like that knot of people who get it and know and are jazzed for this. I hope everybody else, people who are listening to this, maybe because they were turned on to it because they heard I dumped all over DeAndre Ayton, stuck around for this part and heard that, you know, and take a moment to appreciate Christine Sinclair on Friday and, you know, and this week as well. So go ahead. What's your point? Tell me about Sinclair. Does it have anything to do with Blazers broadcasting? Because I've been very confused this week when people keep saying, hey, what is the plan for the Sinclair game? And I'm like, I don't know. Get a digital antenna. And then I find out that they mean Christine Sinclair, not how to watch the Blazers games on Sinclair. But go ahead.
Man, who knew that last name would become, or who knew that name would become important in multiple aspects in Portland? this was a happy accident. This is a happy accident. But my anchor, a few weeks ago, I did something because Christine Sinclair did have her first press conference since announcing her retirement in Canada a few weeks ago. And so I said the Christine Sinclair era in a script is coming to a close. Well, my anchor accidentally said the Sinclaira.
It's the Sinclaira's tour.
So, yeah, I mean, I was like, and we were laughing about it going into my segment on air, but I was like, you might have just done something genius. The Sinclaira. So there you go. I don't know. I don't think it's gonna catch on, but I found it to be catchy. I liked it.
There's only room for one Sinclair in Portland sports, as it turned out.
Well, one of them is going, so.
Exactly. That's why, it was necessitated by the Blazers TV deal. All right, Brenna, we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah,
we're gonna take a breath from this podcast and see how things shake out on multiple fronts. Big game in Ann Arbor. I'll be there. You'll be watching, and I look forward to comparing notes when we come back early next week.
Yes.
Thank you as always for your time and perspective and keeping me on the straight and narrow from time to time.
Well, you'll be in Ann Arbor, and I'll be at Providence Park on Friday. So, so we can bring our varying perspectives on different situations come next week.
Yeah, and neither of us will be at Research Stadium because the Beavers mercifully have a bye, but we'll let them off the hook.
They needed that.
All right, Brenna, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the weekend. To those of you who listened, thank you so much for your time and your loyalty, continuing to support and read the Oregonian, watching Brenna on KOIN 6 and Portland CW after Oregon State games. We appreciate having you here. Tell your friends that they can also get the Oregonian Sports Podcast wherever they get their podcasts. Thanks for listening.